626,000 investors.
That's how many people SIPC has helped since 1970.
$505 million.
Over $500 million.
That's how much SIPC has made available from its reserves to help investors.
Over $15 billion.
That's how much SIPC has made it possible for investors to recover.
What is SIPC?
It's the Securities Investor Protection Corporation.
An investor's first line of defense in the unlikely event that a brokerage firm fails.
It doesn't happen very often.
But when it does, SIPC is there for real people.
Like me.
And me.
And me.
And you. Take the time to learn more about SIPC at www.sipc.org.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Cult Pop. I'm your host, Jim Hall, and we've got another special show for you today. And we're going back to one of those cool things we did a couple episodes ago. We're going to use some technology here. We're going to visit with an old friend, Tobias Buckell. He's the author of the new book, Sly Mongoose, and he's been on the show a few times. He's one of the most popular guests on the show. We get a lot of emails about him. And he's back to talk about Sly Mongoose, but he's not next to me. He's down at his home in Ohio, and we're going to kind of do a phone interview here back and forth and bring you all the good info about Sly Mongoose. So, Tobias, thanks so much for being on the show. As always, we love having you. And let me congratulate you and tell you that just absolutely loved Sly Mongoose.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad to hear that. It was definitely a fun book to write.
When we've talked at previous conventions and different signings I see you at, I tell you how much I love Pepper. Folks at home are going to be happy to know that Pepper is another mainstay in the novel. He's one of the main characters. But one of the things I loved about the novel is in Crystal Rain and Ragamuffin, humans were kind of at the low pecking order. And in this novel, years in the future, we find that Earth has clawed its way back up and kind of now in control. So why don't you go from there and tell us what you'd like to talk about with Sly Mongoose?
Well, certainly the human beings have sort of managed to get themselves out of the political situation that was happening in Crystal Rain and Ragamuffin, which was one in which they were dominated by these sort of colonial-minded aliens. By the third book, they have established their own sort of space, and they've gone out and struck out, and they're trying to create their own government. They're trying to figure out how to coexist with each other, because previously, before then, they've been kind of very focused on the satrapy, which has been a big force in these worlds, and now they're trying to sort of move past that point and interact with other aliens and interact with themselves, and it's complicated but interesting, because now they have a little bit more self-rule and command of their environment, so it gets a little bit more complex and interesting.
Tobias, this novel also has one of my favorite things possible in any book, and that's zombies, and that's your particular take on kind of a hive mentality zombie. Talk a little bit about how you kind of scientifically, your zombies aren't just, well, here's some crazy thing. You kind of have a good scientific reason behind these zombies. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I write science fiction, so when I use tropes, there definitely has to be some sort of justification for why I'm using them or how they get there. And one of the things I was playing with was the idea, if you remember in the book, of people who were part of a techno-democracy. In other words, everything done through technology. They had no real government, but everyone voted in real time in order to create legislature or political decisions for the group as a whole. And that was so interesting, but it started to get me thinking about like hive minds, because from the outside, a techno-democracy looks like a hive mind. In fact, even like here in the United States and in Western democracies, people outside of those Western democracies view them as sort of an implacable wall or juggernaut of coherent activity when, behind the border, it's just a complicated mix of lots and lots of different opinions. But because we all vote and enact legislation, what happens is you get a body that creates things and does things that looks like it as if it's one entity, where people forget that there's really a lot of minds behind it. So after creating the techno-democracy, I wanted to create a enemy that was a sort of look in the mirror, and that's when I came up with zombies that are also definitely a hive mind and all connected, but very much sort of like a techno-democracy. the zombie is an enemy. It's a sort of virus that's self-replicated and passed around through humans, and uses them as, it's basically, the zombies are a giant Beowulf cluster. You know, it's a lot of different, you know, human beings are the individual computers, you know, and they've all been linked up to make one large supercomputer. So the zombie is just sort of a giant hive mind that gets more and more intelligent as it gains more and more people. It's kind of dumb and stumbling in the beginning with just a handful of people that it's infected, but as it gets larger, it becomes quite a force to be reckoned with. And I just thought that was a really interesting sort of implacable foe to create.
I absolutely loved it, and it's kind of neat how each novel you've had kind of a different. In the first Crystal Rain, there was the whole steampunk thing going, and I love that. Ragamuffin had its own giant space opera elements to it. This one, you've got zombies in it. I can't wait to hear what the fourth novel is going to have in the Crystal Rain universe. But something else I wanted to talk about in the Sly Mongoose novel is the incredible setting, the world that it's set on, the mining planet, and just this incredible atmosphere and cities that basically are giant bubbles floating above the surface. Talk a little bit about the discussions we've had in the past on really the real science basis of this whole planet and your cities, and where you had this brainstorm for it.
Sure. Well, the original genesis for the idea, the setting, came from a NASA scientist, Jeff Landis, who gives a presentation about Mars and also Venus. And the interesting thing about Venus is that it's 800 degrees, you know, plus on the surface. You know, it's crushing pressure and atmospheric, you know, density down towards the ground level. It's, you know, more crushing pressure than at the bottom of the Marianas Trench, at the bottom of the ocean. And it rains sulfuric acid, and there's no breathable atmosphere. So it sounds very negative, but Jeff Landis at the beginning of his presentation said, you know, aside from all that, it's the second most habitable place in the solar system. And that was an intriguing statement to make. So I started to, you know, sit there and perk up and listen and take some notes. And he said, you know, if you go up 100,000 feet, Venus becomes really different. You have a atmosphere that is more like our Earth's pressure. You have temperature that's more within norms. You are above the clouds, so it's not raining sulfuric acid. So aside from the fact that there's no breathable air, all the other conditions are much more Earth-like than anywhere else in the solar system. So that's kind of interesting. And so what Jeff then pointed out was that also, because it's carbon dioxide and other gases and not air, since you need to bring air with you anyway, one of the interesting things about air in a Venus-like atmosphere is that it's actually a lifting gas. So what you get is a situation where if you were to take a city or build a very large object in a Venusian atmosphere, in a large bubble with natural air in it that you would need to breathe anyway, it floats. And after Jeff showed the calculations and some of the schematics, I was so struck by the idea of, you know, a sort of scientific justification, a realistic way that Cloud City, basically from Star Wars, would be real, that I just couldn't not use it. Because immediately I thought about, you know, floating cities, and, you know, they would have to lower people in giant pressure suits down to the surface to scavenge for materials. They would, you know, it's a dangerous environment. They would have lots of blimps that would need to be flown back and forth, and any excuse to put blimps in a novel is always fun for me. And so the sort of background for the novel just very much crystallized right there, right at that speech, right as Jeff was talking, just all in one go, which was really cool.
Well, it's absolutely, the home planet is an incredible setting for the novel, and I'm just really amazed. The whole novel is just a page turner. You just whip right through it, and Pepper is the main protagonist. You can't go wrong with him as the main protagonist, but the planet in and of itself and the cities are its own wonderful setting that really seem like a character in and of itself. So congratulations on another fantastic novel.
Thank you.
And I also owe you congratulations on Ragamuffin. Nebula nominated, a lot of other awards and accolades have been coming your way. Talk a little bit about starting from just Crystal Rain and having just kind of really reserved hopes about how well it would do, to the incredible response to Crystal Rain, then the incredible response to Ragamuffin, the award nominations, and now Sly Mongoose, which I think is the best novel of the three. Tell us, you know, where you're at with that, all the wonderful feedback, and where you want to go in the Crystal Rain universe.
Well, you know, I have two more novels that Tor has agreed to publish. The next one is called Duppy Conqueror, and the one after that is going to be called Desolation's Gap. Duppy Conqueror, I'm just now beginning to write, so I really don't have a lot to say about that one, other than we're sort of going to explore some of the natural, curve that has happened over the last 3 books, and sort of look at the political situation of the 2 human factions and how they're going to react, or how they're going to integrate all the other aliens that exist around them into their vision for the future. And I think that's going to be a lot of potential for conflict. And I definitely want to play with that.
Well, it's certainly good news that there's more novels coming in the universe. I just absolutely love the books, and every time I get a chance to read about the characters, when Sly Mongoose, as soon as I opened up the pages and got going, it's a great return to a wonderful universe. So again, congratulations on a great novel, and a great series of novels that are, as we've discussed before, I think the brilliance of what you're doing, and now some other authors are starting to do, is that they're standalone novels that you can just pick up and not be lost at any point, that you can, a first-time reader of your stuff can pick up Sly Mongoose, and boom, that's a great standalone story. Certainly they're going to be interested in reading your other stuff and going back, but you don't need to have read Crystal Rain to read Sly Mongoose or Ragamuffin, etc. I think it's a brilliant plan in the way you write.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I definitely, it's done because I'm a reader myself. I have read so many books where I occasionally come in on book 3 or 4 of a series and realize I'm just missing a whole lot, and it's really kind of confusing. So one of the things I definitely set out to do is try to write these books so that people can come in and read them without having any prior knowledge as much as possible. And I've been very gratified to meet readers who, picked up Ragamuffin, for example, and were intrigued by it and went back and read Crystal Rain and liked it. People who read Sly Mongoose are now picking up Crystal Rain and Ragamuffin. I'm getting emails saying how much they like those books as well too. So that really makes me very happy. So yeah, it's a very intentional thing I do to try and write them so that you don't really have to have any foreknowledge of what I'm doing. Although the people who do read them in order tend to be very happy about the sort of general, they get a sense of the story's slow curving, the history. What I'm doing more is not so much a slow like story happening, an overarching story, but I'm definitely doing just evolving the universe, the politics, and the background that all these characters live in as books go by, and that's kind of the background arch that's happening. So each individual story kind of stands on its own, but the sort of worlds in which it marinates and is backgrounded in, those are what change as time goes by and what people really get a kick out of.
Toby, for somebody that's just tuning into the show and maybe isn't familiar with your previous appearances on the show, one of the things we've discussed before and you've continued to do is going to the website. Anybody can visit your website and grab a few chapters of any of the novels. Talk a little bit about how you think that helps you grab fans in just by having a little bit of a taste of the novel. Do you feel that that's helped your sales and that a lot of people go and read the first few chapters and then go out and actually purchase the novel?
Well, yeah, what I do is I do have roughly the first third of each of my novels. Not quite yet with Sly Mongoose. I'm still posting chapters, over the weeks right now of the first third of it. But the first third of Crystal Rain and the first third of Ragamuffin are all up. And I do get a lot of readers who email me back and say, they got all the way through a third of the book or several chapters and they liked it enough that they actually went and picked up the book, which is the whole idea. I love the experience when I'm in book, like picking up a book and just kind of thumbing through it until I'm hooked. And that's usually what makes me decide to buy a book or not. That point of no return where you're kind of like, all right, I really want to find out how this is going to continue on. So, with Crystal Rain and Ragamuffin, I wanted to do the same thing. I've posted the first third of them up on my website, and they're still up there. And I do get email from people who say just that they picked up and read it and got hooked and bought the book, and they really appreciated that I posted so much of the novel up there for them to really kind of sink their teeth into and get a sense for whether or not the novel was something they wanted to buy.
Excellent. Well, I think it's a great way, myself personally, that if people are interested in your work, they can go out, go to the website, read up, and then, hey, go to their local bookstore and purchase the novel, go to Amazon or whatever they like to deal with. But it's a great way to, when in this age of buyer beware, you see that it's a great product you're offering. It grabs the people in, and then hopefully it sells some books. But now jumping away from the Crystal Rain universe, if you will, you're a very, very busy man right now. And again, I owe you congratulations. You're writing, or probably pretty much done with, the Halo novel. I know you're working on that. And you've also got a collection of your short fiction coming out. So let's talk about both of those. Let's talk about the novel you're writing set in the Halo universe.
Sure. The novel I'm writing in the Halo universe is called Halo: The Cole Protocol. And for those who've played Halo 3, the Cole Protocol, or any of the Halos, the Cole Protocol is a series of instructions for the people in this universe, the United States, or the United Nations Space Command, to avoid capture. In the event of capture, they're to destroy data and stuff like that. That prevents the Covenant from finding out the location of Earth and the inner colonies. So, you know, that's the title of the book, and that's what the Cole Protocol is. And so what I've done in this book is sort of, you know, obviously because it's titled that, explored some of the ramifications of that. And we look a little bit at Grey Team, which, if you've read all the Halo novels, is the team which is too far away to be easily recalled during the really big destruction during the fall of Reach. So you know, Bungie kind of was really excited about my work and wanted to see if I'd take a hack at the putting my own sort of brand of adventure and over-the-top action and you know, big explosions into the Halo universe. They thought I'd be a good fit, and we had a real this was a lot of fun to write. You know, first and foremost, I'm a fan of the video game series. I have an Xbox 360, so I've been playing through the Halo, you know, the Halo franchise, and when they contacted me about, you know, when they and Tor contacted me about possibly writing a book in this series, I was just like, yeah, I would love to.
Now, you said you're a big fan of, you're a big fan of the game, Toby, and that you've played it, and they contacted you. I noticed that there was a nice mention on your website. And did you find that now that you're writing this Halo novel, have you found that a lot of the fans are contacting you at the website? There
are a number of Halo fans who are interested, have contacted me to ask more details, you know, than what I just gave you, because that's basically what I'm allowed to say, the press release, until, you know, more, you know, the book comes out and more details are forthcoming. A lot of them have tried to contact me to find out if I'd tell them more, but so far I've been unable to do that. Some of them have checked out my website just to see what I'm about. You know, it's still, I think the most important thing will be when the book comes out to see how they react. Right now, everyone's just kind of, you know, withholding their judgment until they read the book and see what they think, I think. So, but we have gotten a lot of traffic of people trying to look up more details about the book and asking me more details about the book. But sadly, I can't really fulfill those requests just quite yet.
I guess I'm kind of curious, when you write a novel like Halo that's tied into an already established universe with the games and comics, I believe, and all kinds of stuff, do they give you kind of parameters with which to work, where you can't go in certain directions, or you can go in certain directions, or do they give you a basic idea of what they want you to write, or do you just go right from scratch?
Well, you know, you start out having played all the video games, and I bought all the books, of course, and read them, and read all the comics that have been put out so far in the graphic novels. So basically, I had read and seen everything that there was to read and see and play, and that gave me my sort of solid, you know, obviously by doing what can and can't be done just by playing it. You know certain things exist in the universe of Halo, and you can't really change that, you know, in writing it. You know, and once I talked to them, we exchanged some ideas, and I got to see how they felt about some of the ideas I had. And what happened was that they really dug on the ideas I had, because, as I said, I played through all the games, and so I knew exactly, just as a fan, what you could and couldn't do, and what was available. So the ideas that I was excited about and that I wanted to write about, very naturally, were ones that they got excited about as well. So it wasn't that hard of a jump. Now, of course, there's a similarity in writing the Halo book, as there is a similarity in my now having written a number of my own books, which is in a series, which is that you have to pay attention to what has come before and make sure not to contradict anything, because it's hard to hold every single little detail in your head of what all has come before. So in that case, you know, there's a lot of going back over the books as I was writing, just as right now, as I start writing book 4 in my own series, I'm looking back over pieces and details of books 1, 2, and 3 of my own books, just to make sure I'm not contradicting myself. So that's just comes with the job of working in a pre-established universe, any kind of pre-established universe, whether it's your own or whether it's someone else's. You just have to be careful not to step over previous things that have been said.
Well, I have read some of the comics. I'm a big fan of the first game, but I'm such a fan of your work. I'm very excited to actually read this novel. I think it should be very exciting, and I think that's kind of a heck of an accomplishment for you to be able to write in this universe. So again, congratulations on that. I think it's a pretty cool thing. I wanted to also talk about your short story collection coming out, because you've written a lot of diverse short stories, but until now they've been incredibly in just different random magazines and different periodicals and on the internet. So they've been hard to, I don't know of anybody that could have had every single one because they were in various stuff. Well, now you've got a collection that's bringing a lot of your old short stories together. Talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Well, so far I know of 2 individuals who have all of my short fiction, 2 diehard collectors, and I've run into them and met them before because I've had to sign everything of theirs at conventions. So I know of 2 guys who collect everything I've ever written, which is pretty nifty. But if you're just sort of everyone else, it's really hard to keep that sort of attention up to notice where I come out, because I do come out in lots of, like you said, different magazines and different anthologies and different venues. So it's not like you can just keep with one magazine and find everything I've written. As a result, it's really cool. Wyrm Publishing, W-Y-R-M Publishing, is associated with Clark's World Books. They're founded by the same person, which is Neil Clark. And Wyrm Publishing is putting together a collection of my short stories, my first short story collection, due out this October. And it's called Tides from the New Worlds. And if you go to Wyrm Publishing, you can pre-order it there. It's a limited edition, so there are only so many copies available. I think 500, which will all be signed by me. So, jump in early while you still can. It's got a great cover. Wyrm Publishing puts out some really nice product, so I'm really looking forward to getting this in my hands. And there's another actually interesting project that will be coming out in October as well, and that's called METAtropolis. What this is, it's an original audio anthology being done by Audible.com, and it features John Scalzi, Elizabeth Baird, Jay Lake, Carl Schrader, and me. And just today, as I'm doing this interview with you, it was just released that we can talk about the narrators of it. A bunch of the narrators who are doing this are Battlestar Galactica actors. So right now, if you pre-order it, METAtropolis, you can hear Jay Lake's story being read by the guy who plays Colonel Saul Tigh on the show. Mine is actually read by really well-known audio reader. His name is Scott Brick, and he's won awards and gotten a lot of attention for his reading, and he does a wonderful reading of my novelette in there, or my novella, sorry, in that METAtropolis. And it's just a really cool project. It should be out later, and you can look for details online and whatnot. But it's been a lot of fun working on this over the past few months, as well as all the other stuff I've been doing. So that's definitely one of the cool new projects coming up.
Wow, the audio project does sound very cool. I've read about it both on your website and John Scalzi's and a couple other people's. That does sound very intriguing. And your short story collection at Wyrm Publishing is definitely something people should pick up. And people will be able to see the graphic that we'll have up, and also they can visit our website, and we'll have a link right to that. So people who are interested will be able to track down your book. But we're running out of time here, Tobias. Why don't you remind people about your website, and you've got a couple minutes to talk about anything else you want to talk about. So first of all, tell folks about your website, and then let us know what else is going on in your world.
Well, sure. www.tobiasbuckell.com is my website. I blog from there. Of course, I have sample chapters, free short stories, and to just keep people up to date with what's going on in my life and what I'm doing. In addition, if you're really into short fiction, I would recommend you check out a new anthology that is coming out later this week, called Fast Forward 2. It's edited by Lou Anders. He's the lead editor at Pyre SF, which does great book lines. But Lou is also really well known as an anthologist, and he's put together some great anthologies. Fast Forward 1 had a lot of short stories that became put in year's best fiction anthologies and whatnot. And in this one, I have one of my rare collaborations. I don't really do collaborations that often. A collaboration with Carl Schrader, and we had a lot of fun writing this short story. It's called Mitigation. It's a near-future science fiction short story, and it's really cool, and I urge people to check out Fast Forward too.
Well, that's something we will definitely look for, Tobias. Carl, we're big fans of Carl Schrader here also, and big fans of you, so it's definitely something we'll look for. But we're just about out of time now, Tobias, so I'm going to have to say thank you. And again, congratulations on all your great work. And you've had a busy year and an incredible amount of output, so I want to congratulate you again, and thank you as always for being on Cult Pop.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Okay, and folks at home, that was Tobias Buckell, one of our favorites here on the show. He's been a guest here many times. We absolutely love him. And as always, I just remind you, if you missed anything and you want to get some information, go to the website, www.cult-pop.com. You can revisit the entire episode or link on to the different things that Tobias was talking about. We thank you so much for watching today's show with Tobias Buckell, great author. We recommend you go out and purchase some of his novels we were just talking about. And we hope that you come back next month and watch another Cult Pop.
The magical thing about using energy wisely is that anyone can do it. Use energy-saving light bulbs, energy-smart power strips, and turn off computers and game systems when not in use. Get together and make a difference. Learn what you can do at energy.gov/tink.